We're beginning our unit on data analysis, and while you may be familiar with different types of graphs, we go more into the analysis aspect of things. Our first word is data, which is simply the information you collect from either an experiment or survey. You ask some sort of statistical question, such as where do leaves grow the largest, or what is the average amount of TV watched, and collect data on those questions. What is a statistical question? It's actually just a question about a population or a sample. Here are some examples that I found for you. A population is an entire group, while a sample is just a part of an entire group. If you look at the examples at the bottom of the page, you can see that Bianca is not asking a statistical question because it is not something that can be asked of a population or a sample. It can only be asked of Bianca. Rajan, however, has asked several questions that can be asked of other students or an entire group. Data analysis is simply the process of finding the answers to questions and collecting and organizing the data. Parameters refer to characteristics of a population, and statistics are characteristics of a sample. A survey is something you're probably very familiar with, and it's a way to collect information by asking a question of a group of people, such as what lunch choice is your favorite, how many pets do you have, what month were you born, what did you make on the last test. The answers to these questions could be organized into a table or some sort of graph. An experiment is when you collect data to answer a question by performing some kind of test. You may have done this in the science fair. Examples could be what food do dogs prefer, how much of the stalk will be colored in various amounts of time. You could record the number of chirps per minute by a cricket at different temperatures, or how many pennies it would take to break different brands of toilet paper. There are different types of data. The first is categorical, and it's just what it sounds like. It is data that is grouped in specific categories. For example, it could be what is your eye color, what sport do you play, what is your favorite football team. Quantitative data is data that is placed on a numerical scale. For example, what was your grade on the last test? How many pets do you have? Most quantitative data is answered by a question that says how many. Discrete data is data that is represented in whole numbers, and continuous data is data that can be either whole numbers, fractions, or decimals. There are many different types of graphs, and I'm sure you are familiar with bar graphs. It's a way to display categorical data. You may use either horizontal or vertical bars. The frequency is the number of times an item actually occurs. In the graph on the right, the frequency for romance movies is 6 because there were 6 people who voted for romance movies. A key explains how each data set is represented. There are 2 other kinds of bar graphs that we will look at. The first is a double bar graph, and you use this when you are comparing 2 different categories, such as boys and girls. A stacked bar graph is one where you stack the data on top of each other instead of side by side, like the double bar graph, so that you can compare to each other as well as to the whole. The last type of graph that we're going to look at in this first half is a circle graph. Again, I know that you are familiar with circle graphs. They represent parts of the whole or to each other, and they are represented in percents.